Hello and welcome everyone back to another episode of the Publisher Lab. And to break in what was kind of teased on our last episode, as us joining you all for the very first time from our new studio, we actually have a special guest, don't we, Shelby King, who I normally announce as being joined alongside me.
Yes, we do. He's a familiar guest. I actually may have stole his job by co-hosting this podcast, but we have John Cole here. So he's here visiting.
It's good to be back.
Yeah,
it is actually.
She both stole your job and saved the podcast at the same time.
That's right. Nice.
So Shelby, we've got John with us. Were we able to track down some news that maybe John can help us out with this week in the world of publishing?
I definitely think so. John, you're always it's always really nice to have you on the podcast because you bring so much knowledge and you've got a fun accent. So
thanks. Yeah. Well, I always think that you guys have the accent, not me. And that's just the way British people are.
I'm always way more aware of it whenever I travel over to when I come and see you in London, because every place that I go, I know that I look like everybody else here, but it's the moment that I start talking that I know that I give myself away is that I'm not from here. And so I can only imagine what it was like for you. You lived here in California with us.
Yeah, that's right. 3 years.
Couple years.
Well, 3.5 years, something like that.
Yeah. All right.
Actually, real quick, Shelby, before we get started, we have a lot of new listeners, John. Like maybe you could give everybody maybe a quick background on who you are for those that are like, I hear them talk about this guy sometimes, but I don't know who he is.
Yeah, I guess. So I, long time ago, used to be in the Royal Navy, and then I founded an ad network, which then became part of a larger American business, and that's where I started working with Dwayne LaFleur, who's the founder and CEO of Ezoic. So I've worked with Dwayne for 13 years, 14 years, something like that. That's a long time. Feels longer. Just kidding, Dwayne. He's probably not listening to this.
I don't think he's ever listened to the podcast.
And that's really how you and I got to know each other, and we got the podcast going. Or really, you kind of got it going. Let's be honest.
Well, it actually was an incumbent thing. I think you had started the podcast with some publishers a long time ago. And then you and I kind of picked up that torch, and I always credit Shelby with, she basically took us up and made us be consistent, and that's really how we've grown it to being a relatively popular for the world of digital publishing, which is I think probably the amount of people that want to listen to a podcast on digital publishing is limited. No offense to all of those that are clearly the ones that are listening and fans. So I think that's sort of the story of the podcast as well as the story of John Cole.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, my expertise, I would say, is that I was on the advertiser side of the fence for a good 10 years, and then I've been on the publisher side of the fence for another 10 years. So I feel pretty comfortable on the publisher side now.
Kind of like a reformed criminal working for the FBI.
Yeah,
they don't allow you to do that, but
poacher turned gamekeeper, something like that.
All right. So the first thing I wanted to talk about, this one is a new report from the Interactive Advertising Bureau. So programmatic now accounts for 85% of U.S. digital ad spend. And so the programmatic ad spend has grown to almost $79 billion, which is an 87% increase since the first year was benchmarked in 2017. So they estimate that U.S. programmatic ad spend will cross the 91 billion point by 2021. So this is an increase of about 15% from where it currently stands. The report also states that this increase is a direct response to people having more access to data. So the internet use is also increasing year over year. So 1.4 billion consumers worldwide, which is about half the world that uses internet, and that includes 87% of the US population. So any thoughts on that? I mean, it's probably pretty expected.
Yeah, I totally expect it, because for all those years, those people, if you want to go look it up, go and just type into Google or Bing. Sorry, I've got to be impartial.
I think DuckDuckGo is bigger than Bing now.
Okay, DuckDuckGo, let's put it in there. But if you look for Mary Meeker and her annual report, there's a slideshow, and it always shows the attention versus dollars spent. And for a very long time, the amount of money being spent in TV sort of like cable, I guess, was way higher than the time spent. And the internet was the other way around. So it's actually rebalancing, and I just see this as being a natural progression. We all spend a lot of time on our phones. It's pretty obvious that advertisers want to be there.
And you mentioned kind of programmatic, John, and just sort of the growth there. I'm curious, it's hard to really talk about that subject right now without talking about the death of cookies and things like that. And I think whenever you start talking about the growth of programmatic, I think publishers sort of start sweating a little bit and wondering, but is this gonna last? Is this gonna be a good thing? And it's something that we've talked about on the show. I always say, listen, the dollars flow to the eyeballs, and there's nothing that's gonna change there. But what's your perspective on sort of this, the continued growth of programmatic, and how publishers can expect that to maybe change with some of the ecosystem challenges that are going on right now in privacy?
I would be very surprised if programmatic halts its growth because of the change in privacy policies. I would say that it's going to continue to grow. It's just the targeting metrics are going to have to change. So one of the things that most people sort of forget is that Facebook and Google, which is I don't know what the exact percentage is, but it's a big old chunk of that volume. Those are effectively walled gardens. So Facebook know who you are. They don't need cookies. They're able to then do their ad targeting based on who you are, who your friends are, all that stuff. And same thing with Google, where you're logged into Chrome or you're using google.com. They don't have to follow you around with a cookie. They can actually get you with Android and everything else. Now, we don't know the mechanisms behind that, but we do know that their ad targeting doesn't rely solely on cookies. Having said that, I do see it as a threat to advertising revenues and the ecosystem generally. I just see it as being, it's going to empower those big monopolies even more. And so Safari, we're already seeing Safari browser earnings begin to go down, which isn't great. And within 2 years, obviously, Chrome is going to start to go the same way. I'm slightly biased, I think, in the fact that I think that third-party cookies have always been a little bit overrated, and contextual targeting has always been sort of put down a little bit. But don't forget that first-party cookies are never going to be blocked. So there's a natural advantage for publishers long-term who are able to leverage the fact that they have a direct relationship with the consumer, and that if we can work out that ad targeting without cookies, which people are talking about, the universal ID, I don't know if you've heard of that. It's like an encrypted hash of a personally identified.
Kind of like the open RTB idea, right?
Yeah, that's it. And so there are things coming down the road. It's just when the biggest movers have a natural advantage, they are not going to give that advantage away freely. So there's good and bad in all this. I do think that we're in a good spot as publishers because the competition is still there, and there's more and more and more advertisers coming in, and I don't see any big declines happening in this year, for example.
All right. The next topic I want to talk about is from DigiDay. The title of the article is How Famous Birthdays is Building a Growing Media Company on the Back of Programmatic Ads. So Famous Birthdays, they found their niche by providing kind of slimmed down biographies and ranking the popularity of social media stars and celebrities. So this website was founded in 2012, and it has a staff of 35 people, including freelancers. So they recently logged 25 million unique monthly visitors, and about 75% of these visitors access via mobile, or even using the Famous Birthdays mobile app. So nearly all of its revenue is sourced from automatic ad systems. So that's purchased on display exchanges. They also generate revenue from videos on platforms like YouTube and Twitter. Instead of investing in a sales team for direct ads, they pretty much put all of their resources towards creating more content. So the site uses an open platform similar to Wikipedia's, but their CEO says that Wikipedia had too much information for mobile, and also just doesn't focus on, the stars that Gen Z is interested in. So although famous birthdays cannot confirm that their audiences are mostly Gen Zers, because they don't use any first-party cookies or logins on their website, the number of top-ranked celebrities on the site's most popular page that come from Gen Z or Gen Z-dominated platforms like TikTok. So that kind of indicates that people who are searching for these celebrities are from that kind of age group. So what are your thoughts on this? I thought that's kind of a clever way to figure that out.
I'm a fan of sort of the way that they've sort of positioned their business. So, I mean, it's Shelby, when you mentioned the name of the publisher, it was really easy to see kind of like, this is kind of a niche site that started a long time ago that's basically grown into a publishing business. And I really like when you see independent publishers like that adopt the kind of, we're not going to invest a lot in a sales model. We're going to invest a lot in content and product strategy. And it's using data to basically, backcast what your audience is, understand that they're a very mobile focused audience, the insight that, Wikipedia, too much information for mobile. I like a lot of those things.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's actually the future of publishing. I don't think you need salespeople knocking on advertising agencies' doors and asking them to include them in an IO. And actually, coming back to the previous question about the growth of programmatic guaranteed, don't forget, is effectively a direct deal, but it's booked online. You don't need a human. So is it Evan who's the CEO? I'm trying to remember his name. I'm sure I had a chat with him a few years ago, but they've built a fantastic business, and I love seeing, like Tyler was saying, like a modern, go-ahead business, data-focused, and they've grown and grown and grown, and those are the ones that they're gonna sort of own the internet in the future. Whereas the big sort of behemoths that have got huge tech burdens on every page that they load, that require cookies and all the rest of it, those guys are going to be in trouble with these privacy things that are coming up. So yeah, good spot. I like that. It's a good story. I didn't even hear that one.
All right. The next topic I have is from Ad Exchanger. It's about She Media. So they found a new source of revenue in organic social embeds. So journalists regularly embed organic social posts like tweets or Instagram posts or YouTube videos in their stories. So why not monetize on them, right? So She Media has been experimenting with adding contextual ads in social organic embeds on 3 of their owned and operated sites. So these contextual segments are created by analyzing the metadata from each embed on the page. So this includes the account that it was posted from, hashtags, images or videos that are part of the post to kind of gauge that tone and sentiment. So apparently the revenue gains are pretty incremental, but the average for these websites, they have about 36% of these articles include embeds in them. So the service that She Media uses supports posts from Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, TikTok, Spotify, SoundCloud, Twitch, Jiffy? The GIF?
The world is divided.
Yeah, it's very...
I go Giphy, but Jiffy is what a lot of people call it.
And also Reddit. And so they've actually noticed that they're focused on TikTok embeds, though. So what are your thoughts on this? Is this something that you see a lot of people adopting?
I don't think that it's going to be this next wave of adoption. I think anytime you have something like this, it's a creative idea. There's a lot of these things that kind of pop out there that people try to find ways to kind of monetize something that they're going to put on the page. The one caution that I have with things like this is anything, especially that you intend to monetize, but pretty much everything that you put on a page has the ability to cannibalize the attention of the reader or the visitor. And my concern with finding ways to monetize those types of things is that it cannibalizes attention, could harm UX, and can affect other things that basically you monetize on the page. Not to say that it's a negative thing, or maybe that it doesn't add value, or maybe it's a more passive form of monetizing the page. But hearing that it was an incremental lift in revenue means it's not really moving the needle, probably. What was that?
Everything all right?
I don't even know what that was.
We just had what
Something-
seems like an explosion in the studio. So
It's
just
okay.
providing some context.
All
Okay.
the mics are working.
Wow.
Still.
Okay. All right.
Ooh.
And everyone's fine.
Yeah, and we're alive. So, yeah. So she media perhaps is like listening to this and like, don't give away our secrets. But the nevertheless, I think the thing to think about here is just how those things affect all the other material that's on the page, right, John?
Yeah, I think you kind of said it really well. There's an opportunity cost for everything that you do. You provide the users with the opportunity to leave the page, even if it's through a TikTok account. Does that add a lot of value? It depends on the context. It sort of reminds me a little bit. Do you remember info links?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, it makes me think of that. It's like everyone was like, "Wow, how much money do you make from info links?" It's a lot of money, right? Because it's contextual targeting within the page, and it would sort of underline and then link and charge on a CPC. But then they moved to a video model. I think it was Vibrant Media did the same thing. This is like 5 years ago. And then you would mouse over it, and it was just on desktop, and then it would like come out with a video. And these are all, they sound like a great idea at the time, but actually it's just another way of, making or diluting the overall value of your reader's attention. So again, I would say I wouldn't do it for all readers. I would use it as a string to your bow.
It's kind of like native or, any of these new ad formats that come along. It sounds like because it's
they're
something
great for a bit.
Yeah, well, it seems like it's something new, so it's additive, right? And it's something that I learned from you, John, which is really that, all ads dilute other ads. And I think just because it's a different type of ad, in quotes, doesn't mean it's not going to have some kind of effect on all the same things that ads can have an effect on.
Yeah.
All right. So the last topic I have on deck today is from Search Engine Land. It's about a Google patent application that kind of hints towards EAT, or what is it? Expertise, authority, and trustworthiness.
Yeah,
and
that's
also,
it.
Oh, sorry. And also categorizing health sites. So Google recently published a new patent application that was originally filed back in August 2018. So the patent was named Website Representation Vector to generate search results and classify website. So the patent application uses neural networks to understand patterns and features behind websites to classify those sites. So in short, it seems like Google can determine the category of a site and thus understand if the site needs to have a level of authority to it. So it looks at whether a site was written by experts and whether these experts have authority. So the patent reads, for instance, the website classification may include a first category of website authors by experts in the knowledge domain. So their example is doctors. A second category of website authors by apprentices. And so that example was medical students. And then a third, which is authored by laypersons in the knowledge domain. So the timing of the release is also pretty interesting. So it was published back in August of 2018. So that was around the time the Medic update, or it was nicknamed the Medic update. And it was nicknamed that because it seemed to kind of slant towards health and medical sites. And there are also over a dozen references in the patent application that are related to health and medical and doctors. So what are your thoughts on that? Or should people be expecting some big changes?
Google are so, they've got so much computing power now that obviously their cloud business has been taking off. I heard today, I was on a call with one of the guys, an internal training call with Google, and they said they could process, I think it was 500 billion cells in less than 5 seconds. So that kind of data crunching that's a data advantage for Google. It's just going to be another part of the Google algorithm. I don't see any other big change that can be coming down the pipe, other than the fact that Google have been caught, haven't they, getting data, giving sweetheart data deals to people at hospitals or businesses like hospitals, in exchange for, oh, we can use that for research, and then that's obviously personally private data. So I think this is all like Google getting into the data business. That they've always been in the data business, but they're really doubling down on it. And the fact that they have this dominant position as a search engine is giving them, this is like a natural monopoly, isn't it? Like try and build a search engine.
It's a self-building monopoly in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that to take away, if you're somebody that follows a lot of the things that Google gives in terms of advice or just how they kind of shoot down rumors, I think what's funny about this one is that this information is coming out now, but it's a patent that was filed at the same time that this big update happened, and all the examples in this patent are medical based. And at the time, Google was like, no, this whatever update we had, it affects all sites equally. There's no specific vertical that's affected more than others. And it was really obvious just by all the different people in the space that sites that affected your money or your life, financial, medical, were affected the most. But I think the real takeaway here is something that I've really hammered home for people forever, which is are backlinks important? Are who's authoring this content? Is that important? Is that a ranking factor? Is video a ranking factor? Is word count a ranking factor? And the answer to every single one of those questions is it depends, and it depends even more on the query. So if you're searching for news about cancer research, then Google is probably going to really try to figure out what credible sources are linking to this, what credible sources can I identify that are credited with producing this material. That's probably really important. So those factors are going to be big ranking factors for that. Are those same factors going to carry the same amount of weight if I'm trying to figure out like the best pecan pie in San Diego?
Mm-hmm. Or you're looking up like inspirational quotes of the day,
Precisely. It's so I think people spend a lot of time worrying about backlinks or authority, and in a lot of these cases, it really depends on the query of how important those types of things are. So I do think we need to have a shift in thinking as we think about SEO in terms of what would be important for someone searching for this, what qualities would that website have, and a lot of times it really comes back to the content itself.
All right, that's actually all the topics that I have for today. Is there anything going on either of your ends?
John, what's going on over across the pond right now?
Well, the rugby, they just cancelled the England-Italy game, which was going to be happening in northern Italy because of the coronavirus.
So the coronavirus has affected the market quite a bit. How do you think it's going to affect the world of, I don't know, I guess digital advertising publishing? Isn't the like advertising kind of like doesn't it go with the market a little bit, John?
Oh yeah, I mean they say that advertising sort of oils the wheels of commerce, right? That's basically what it is. Trying to look at the silver lining here. If lots of people are in enforced quarantine, they're probably going to be on their phones a lot. Ad impressions might go up. Deliveries might increase.
Spoken like a man that once started an ad network. They're going to be on their
Sorry,
phones.
That's terribly mercenary of me to say. But it depends. I'm getting the feeling that this is going to be something that is going to affect America, which is obviously the biggest ad market in the world. It hasn't really affected it yet. It's probably just a question of when, unfortunately. And then what might have to happen is some enforced not coming to work, not going to school type situation. In 10 years' time, will it be good or bad? It depends on how terrible it's gonna be. I really hope it doesn't spread too much, but everyone needs to listen to the government. And this thing in Italy, the reason it happened is because somebody went to China, got infected, and you don't show any symptoms for 2 weeks. And then they went to a carnival, they went to all these different things. They basically just infected hundreds and hundreds of people because they didn't stay at home for 2 weeks after they got back from China, which they should have done. So. And
one other thing, John, I'm just curious about, because I don't think we get the same exposure to the foreign markets here as you guys do across the pond. And markets that, you have these large tech companies like Yandex or Baidu or Tencent that are based in, Russia, China. How much are these digital marketplaces an area of growth? It sounds like they're these kind of behemoths that are out there that I think a lot of publishers that are probably either based in America or Canada, or even I guess just even in general the Western Hemisphere maybe aren't as familiar with.
How do you mean? Sort of like
I guess the potential for growth, because I think in a lot of ways publishers aren't participating in these marketplaces that see something like Google or something like that.
Earnings tends to follow economic growth in the region. So online advertising goes very sort of tightly. So, for example, I was talking today with a couple of the guys about some Greek sites that were signing up using the Ezoic system. And I was looking at the revenue and I was like, oh, wow, it's like 3 million visits, but approximately a third of what I would have expected had that been an American site. And so it does go with the local economy, because that's been a sort of a low growth economy for a while. The ones that I'm tipping for the future, Northern Africa and actually Africa in general as a growth economy. More so, unfortunately, because they did say it was BRICS, didn't they? Which is Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. But that hasn't really materialized. That's been relatively flat. So I'm just looking like how many bazillion phones are there in the world now. I think the more original, good quality content that you put out there, and if you can do it in other languages, there is an opportunity. But English is still like the number one by far. Having said that, I've been working a lot in French, German, and Italian this last year. The growth there is terrific, particularly for Google.
We talked about it yesterday, but just kind of that people sleep on the Italian market sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, people sort of let it go past, but it's one of the biggest economies in Europe and therefore the world. So, I think people just sort of forget about that. But yeah, good time to be a digital publisher.
We always say that.
Yeah, make money while you're sleeping, don't forget.
I just think that technology has really made digital publishing an even better space to be in, and it continues to kind of progress that way.
Indian traffic, for example, really good example. It's coming up and up and up all the time, but it's just the volumes. And as the infrastructure improves, because they've got, on the whole, worse connection speeds and slower handsets, so making sure that your site speed is good for those countries, really important. Making sure that DOM interactive scores are low, and that if you go and see how much money you're making from India and see what the browsers are, make sure that all of your stuff loads properly on those kind of browsers. Those are all good tips. I've actually increased on my own hobby site my Indian traffic substantially because of that. Top tip.
Well, John, thanks for joining us on the podcast again. Shelby, do we have anything else today?
I think that's all. I think by this time we may still be taking some Pubtelligence applications for our event in New York. We're going to be announcing some more dates for the rest of the year soon. So I think the podcast will probably be the first place we announce them. But that's actually all for me.
And some surprise guest speakers that we'll probably have an opportunity to announce here very soon.
Yeah, very excited about those. Not going to say.
So
very exciting.
That's it for another episode of The Publisher Lab. We want to thank John Cole for joining us once again. And we'll catch you next time on another episode of The Publisher Lab.